At a train station, a man photographs his sneakers while registering his profile. He wonders if this is the right spot. If not, he will try another station. A notification appears, his profile updates. He reaches an ending that begins a new life and gains a skill. Another alert follows. He has now seen the 99th ending. Nearby, an elderly woman notices his excitement. A train rushes past. When she looks again, he appears gloomy. His phone rings. His mother angrily scolds him for gaming with the college exam 2 days away and orders him home. He says he is coming. The call ends. Another notification appears. It says he has seen all 99 endings and that his true reset life begins. Confused, he wonders what it means. Reset Life is a hidden god-tier AR game that appeared 6 years early and drove most players away. Still, he lived countless lives inside it. Assuming this is a hidden mode, he is asked to choose one skill to inherit. He selects one. The screen stays the same. A strange event occurs. A new interface reveals the secret skill reality fairy tale. His 100th life is declared real. The skill national top scorer claims success is 99% talent and 1% effort. Studying is talent. Effort without it is meaningless. In a quiz session, Jinho answers the moment a question is asked. The moderator checks. Jinho confirms without hesitation. During the break, students crowd around him. Surprised, he thinks of Maslow's need for esteem. Jaejin bursts in, shocked by Jinho's advanced knowledge. Suspicious, he is told to close the door. Jaejin later learns that Reset Life forced Jinho to memorize nearly 50,000 files and granted the skill. Jinho says surviving the system turns anyone into a genius. That day, knowledge surges through him like electricity. The skill reshapes his brain, not his will. For 6 years, he risked everything on Reset Life. Nothing came easily. Every exam brought exhaustion and hope. In 1 month, Challenge Big Bell will film at the school. The last person standing earns a scholarship. Jaejin says Jinho shines brighter than ever and promises support. He suggests celebrating with pork cutlet, Italian food, and pizza. Jinho wonders how he never gains weight. The classroom erupts in cheers as Jinho enters. Asked about his prelim scores, he confirms them. The teacher says Jinho may be the only perfect scorer in the country. Jinho says the exam felt easy. The principal nearly faints and promises full support. Jaejin stares in shock. Jinho apologizes, saying even his mother doubted him. Jaejin jokes that he has been possessed. At home, Jinho's mother announces his score to the neighborhood. Embarrassed, Jinho apologizes. His father jokes that if games were like studying, he should have said so earlier and suggests tutoring. Relatives soon start asking. Jinho decides to travel alone. The skill says anything is possible under strict conditions. One method requires 108 bows for 77 days in prayer at Gatboy. The ritual sounds absurd but necessary. He checks in at Bondrinsa Temple. Jaejin asks if he really did the bows. Jinho says shortcuts no longer work. With poor stamina, he struggles from the start. The monk warns the path is brutal. After a few bows, Jinho is exhausted and nearly quits. A student called Andy Odway lends him gym clothes. Jin mocks his looks and tells him to take a photo. Seeing his face, Jinho freezes. The shock is real. Every flaw stands out. He wishes for clear skin and a fit body, but not a new identity. He wants to remain his parents' son. Before leaving, his mother gives him money and admits past neglect. Moved, Jinho promises to return as someone she can be proud of. On the final day, the monk visits. Jinho looks healthier. Asked if he is ready to descend, he thanks him and agrees. At Incheon Airport, a group of female fans scream as several male idols walk past. They take photos excitedly while security guards tell them to step back. One guard receives a call from another, asking if any idol has gotten separated from the group. He answers no. The caller then realizes that the person he mistook for a celebrity is actually just an ordinary traveler. He quickly apologizes to Jinho. The nearby fans are also surprised, and one of them says she thought he was a rookie actor. Still, she admits it makes sense because Jinho is extremely handsome. Jinho then receives a call from Jaejin, who asks where he is. Jinho replies that he is looking for the meeting point. Jaejin warns him that this is his last chance to tell the truth, and Jinho quickly says it is not plastic surgery. Jaejin is at home peeling a tangerine while talking on the phone. He says that even a lottery ticket has limits and asks Jinho where someone can find such luck. Jinho replies that Jaejin should not say that, especially since he has been sending photos of himself every day during his stay at the temple. The skill asterisk, where there is a will, there is a way asterisk, does not change a person's appearance instantly after 77 days. Even if someone starts from the lowest point like mud, if they continue to move forward without stopping, they will bloom like a lotus. That is what the skill truly means. On the plane, flight attendants keep coming to Jinho's seat. He starts to feel uncomfortable from all the attention. One of them even gives him water with her contact information written on it. Jinho cannot help but think that the power of good looks is truly terrifying. He has already received more notes than the number of contacts in his phone. He remembers his mother saying that all the students in his overseas language program are around his age and that he should enjoy making friends since he never experienced a school trip before. Jinho thinks that now that he is good at studying and also looks good, making friends should be easy. Later in Milan, Jinho sits in his room feeling confused because no one has spoken to him yet. He then realizes what he overlooked. The students in the language program are all top performers who survived intense competition. Their confidence is built on years of achievement. To them, Jinho appears not as a peer, but as an overwhelming presence. Without meaning to, he has already placed himself on a completely different level from everyone else. This is a simple rule of human relationships, but for Jinho, who has just come out of a life spent addicted to games, it feels overwhelming. As night falls, he lies down and hopes he will not have to spend the entire 2 weeks alone. The next morning, Jinho goes to a cafe. He feels tired because he did not sleep well. He orders breakfast, but even though the food looks good, he feels that eating alone makes everything taste dull. Still, once he takes a bite of the croissant, his appetite slowly returns. The pastry is crispy on the outside and soft inside with a rich, unfamiliar flavor. He wonders what kind of jam it is since he has never tasted anything like it in Korea. He notices another man nearby calmly reading a newspaper while drinking coffee. Jinho decides to copy him, thinking that he should enjoy the moment instead of feeling gloomy. After all, he is in Milan. However, when he takes a sip of his coffee, his face twists in shock. The taste is bitter and he wonders if he ordered the wrong thing. A voice suddenly tells him that in Italy, caff means espresso. He looks up and sees a beautiful Italian woman standing nearby. She asks if the owner did not explain it to him. Jinho admits that he did not know and says he should have checked beforehand. Inside, he cannot help thinking that she is very beautiful. She smiles and says that his Italian sounds so natural that she assumed he already knew. She adds that his facial expressions are interesting, which is why she spoke to him. She asks if he is a model or an actor. Jinho replies that he is just a student who is about to start university. She says it is a waste of such good looks and shyly tells her that she is very beautiful too. She laughs and says he needs to be more confident. Then she gives him her business card and kisses him lightly on the cheek, leaving Jinho completely stunned. She tells him to call her if he is interested and adds that he should act more confidently. She even jokes that if she had known how handsome he was without his glasses, she would have kissed him on the lips instead. Jinho cannot believe what just happened. He quickly looks at the business card and realizes it belongs to an Italian modeling agency. At that moment, he remembers his mother's words about not counting on things too quickly. He realizes that this must be street casting. Suddenly, he blurts out that the food is too spicy. A woman nearby asks what is spicy, and he recognizes her as Kim Sung-mi, the writer of *Challenge Big Bell*, and the supervisor of a language study program. She tells him to call her Nuna and says she worked until dawn and is exhausted. She also points out that he is already awake while everyone else should still be sleeping. Jinho explains that he was too excited to sleep and then realizes that Sung-mi might understand what he is going through. As he speaks, the cafe owner brings over a luxurious-looking dish for Sung-mi. Both of them are surprised. Jinho thinks it must be the power of being an adult, but Sung-mi shakes her head and says that is not the case. She explains that the order must have been mixed up and asks Jinho to tell the owner. When Jinho does, the owner insists that the dish is correct. Jinho cannot help thinking that this might be a scam where tourists are served food they never ordered so they can be charged more. However, the cafe owner speaks up and says that he simply wants to see Sung-mi's jewel-like eyes shine a little longer in his cafe. Sung-mi turns to Jinho with a cold expression and tells him to translate that for her. Faced with her sharp gaze, Jinho hesitates, feeling a chill run down his spine as he struggles to find the right words. Sung-mi thanks the cafe owner politely, her expression calm and composed. Jinho, however, cannot help asking if she is not bothered by what just happened. He points out that the man clearly flirted with her and he wonders how she can accept it so easily. Sung-mi answers calmly that there is nothing wrong with it. To her, it is simply a form of harmless kindness. She then turns the situation around and tells Jinho that he should be more concerned about the fact that a beautiful woman just openly flirted with him first thing in the morning. Jinho freezes, embarrassed that she noticed, and instinctively looks away. Sung-mi watches his reaction with interest. She says that he is a rare type of person, someone who could easily have the world if he wanted it, yet remains strangely pure and unaware of his own appeal. Then she suddenly asks him what he thinks is the most important thing in broadcasting. Jinho answers honestly that it must be pretty celebrities, good visuals, and proper lighting. He explains that people need to be visually drawn in first, or they will not keep watching, and without viewers, ratings will never rise. Sung-mi nods and admits that he is right. She then asks if the same logic applies to *Challenge Big Bell* as well. She explains that broadcasting comes from the words broad and cast, meaning to send a message far and wide. If someone wants to deliver something, they must first capture attention. She adds that the woman who flirted with him earlier caught his attention through her looks, while the cafe owner caught hers through his attitude and service. Both were attempts to convey something, even if the results were not always ideal. She gives another example, saying that if someone gave flowers to express affection, but the other person disliked flowers, it would only create discomfort. Jinho immediately understands and recalls moments from his own past when good intentions were misunderstood. He nods in agreement, realizing how true her words are. Just then, on public transportation, a young woman is seen holding an Italian book. She struggles to read it aloud, stumbling over the pronunciation and frowning in frustration at how different it is from English. As she continues, someone quietly steps closer, drawing her attention as she looks up in surprise. Before all of this, Jino asks Seungmi what he should do if it is not the flowers, but himself that someone dislikes. She tells him not to bother hanging out with people who do not like him, saying there is no point, but reassures him that he does not need to worry about it. Later, Jino smiles politely at a lady and asks if there is anything he can help her with. It is the 4th day of the language study abroad program. The Korean guys, already familiar with each other, spot a church nearby. They jokingly pray for kimchi stew to rain down on them, wondering if they should pray in Italian since they are in Italy. As they laugh, they notice Jino walking by, quietly muttering prayers in Italian. Seeing him struggle makes them realize that he is facing his own challenge as well. Jino notices that Seungmi's advice is working. Her words have drawn out his latent proactivity and courage, and seeing him take initiative encourages the others around him. He takes pictures with some of the ladies, which are later posted online and quickly gather many likes. The sudden popularity sparks a little jealousy among the other guys. After spending many hours interacting, Jino gradually becomes closer to the guys than the girls. He mutters to himself that he is starting to dread visiting new tourist spots because they always insist on taking pictures every time the scenery changes. One of the guys teases him, saying that handsome people naturally become walking life in cuts, and that being moderately good-looking is actually the best. They all laugh, enjoying the moment with Jino. Meanwhile, the photos he took with the ladies have already received over 10,000 likes. Jino feels a sudden jolt as he notices this. He realizes that if he does not straighten his back, wearing the clothes in the photos will feel uncomfortable. He quickly asks the girls if they posted the pictures they took, and upon learning that the post already has over 10,000 likes, he can hardly believe it. Jino quickly rushes to the Reset Life forum, his heart racing with excitement. He posts a detailed message claiming that he has finally discovered the method to unlock the skill asterisk on the best asterisk. He carefully explains each step, outlining how the skill, which is designed purely for modeling, is born out of talent that exists naturally but often goes unrecognized. He emphasizes that this skill is unique, meant for those who can carry themselves with innate confidence and charm. At a cave, he reflects on the unexpected turn of events. He never imagined he could gain so many new skills so quickly. He begins to wonder what the true limit is. Could he potentially acquire all 99 skills? The thought makes him feel both exhilarated and slightly overwhelmed. To him, it feels like receiving CBT rewards, followed by OBT rewards, and now attendance rewards, all stacked one after another, each better than the last. The sheer pace at which these opportunities appear makes his head spin, but he cannot deny the thrill of it all. Just then, a shout pierces through the busy atmosphere, pulling Jino out of his thoughts. Curious, he looks up and sees a group of people gathering a short distance away. At the center of the crowd, a photographer is clearly enraged. His frustration is evident as he yells at a model who is failing to strike the pose he demands. The photographer mutters that he is no longer working with the agency and that he cannot tolerate such delays, his anger making the tension in the air almost palpable. Amid the chaos, the photographer suddenly notices Jino standing nearby. A wide grin spreads across his face and he laughs as if fate itself has delivered him a gift. He exclaims that God must be on his side today and immediately demands that Jino be brought over at once by any means necessary. The skill on the hottest thing is not about reaching a peak through hard work or spending money. It is about when others are looking at you. Some people are simply born to be in the spotlight. At the photo shoot, the professional model Leonardo fumes as he realizes he has been replaced by an amateur. That amateur is Jino. Jino, completely new to this world, asks the makeup artist what to do if his face itches, since it is his first time wearing makeup. The makeup artist tells him to just bear with it. Leonardo grows even more frustrated, realizing that Jino has never done a photo shoot or applied makeup before. The photographer, however, recalls why he chose Jino. It is not only for his good looks, but because he naturally stands out in a crowd. At that moment, Jino ends a call with Seungmi and informs the photographer that he has obtained permission from the supervisor to start the shoot. The photographer raises an eyebrow and asks if Jino is really a professional model. Jino admits that while he has no experience, he possesses the skills of a professional model. He is just not famous and does not have an agency. The photographer is stunned. As he begins the photo shoot, even Leonardo cannot help but admit that just by watching, he can already imagine the completed photo spread. He pictures readers stopping mid-scroll to admire Jino's shoot. Above all, he realizes how effortlessly cool Jino is. Leonardo had originally intended to watch in order to find faults and perhaps scorn the photographer, but instead he is forced to acknowledge the obvious difference in talent and presence. Later back in Seoul, Jino steps out of the shower, reflecting on the whirlwind of his language study trip. He thinks about all the new experiences, the friends he made, the photo shoot he did, and the lessons he learned. Among all of this, the thing that makes him happiest is that he was finally able to buy gifts for his parents using his earnings from the shoot. His mother walks past wearing the scarf he bought her. Surprised, Jino asks why she is wearing it so early in the morning. She smiles and replies that she wants to proudly show off the gift her son bought her everywhere. Jinho cannot help but feel a warm pride swell in his chest. Meanwhile, Jinho's father is at the oil station, and one of the employees notices the new watch on his wrist. Beaming with pride, Jinho's dad shows it off, explaining that his son bought it himself with the money he earned from modeling in Italy. The employee nods in admiration, impressed by both the watch and the story behind it. Back at home, Jinho's mother is doing the dishes and casually asks if he knows his aunt Jinsuk. Jinho immediately remembers her as the annoying relative who always tried to put him and his mother down. His mother explains that Aunt Jinsuk wants Jinho to tutor her child. Jinho calmly replies that while he could do it, he does not want to burden Aunt Jinsuk with tutor fees. He realizes his mother wanted to refuse out of a small revenge but could not think of a good excuse. Then his mother asks about Aunt Mayang, the only relative who consistently takes both his side and hers. She is known for giving generous allowances. Jinho explains that he is not picky, but the allowance from Aunt Mayang is certainly substantial, which makes him willing to agree. His mother lights up with excitement at the news. Jinho reflects that if one studies well, rewards like these are possible. He feels genuinely grateful that he obtained the national top student skill, which made this kind of success attainable. Later, his mother asks if he really does not want her to accompany him. Jinho reassures her that it is only the entrance ceremony, not graduation. She then notices that he is wearing the suit she had bought him as a gift in Italy. Jinho explains that Jaejin insisted he wear a suit for the ceremony. He recalls Jaejin loudly declaring that a suit symbolizes adulthood, and that college freshmen should absolutely wear one. His mother can't help but remark that times have certainly changed compared to her era. Jinho smiles at her and promises to call if he will be late before heading out. At the college, all eyes immediately fall on Jinho. He is the only freshman wearing a suit, and everyone assumes he cannot possibly be a first-year student. Jinho quickly realizes that he was tricked by Jaejin, who had insisted on the suit, and he feels a rush of irritation. At the School of Business Administration, the other freshmen are growing restless, wondering where Jinho is. He is supposed to deliver the freshman representative entrance pledge, and the ceremony is about to begin. One of the students suggests that the class president try contacting him, but the president freezes. He doesn't even have Jinho's number and wonders aloud how he is supposed to find a guy who skipped orientation and doesn't use social media. It turns out that Jinho had been away on the study trip, missing orientation entirely. The freshmen seethe with frustration, imagining Jinho casually strolling through the main gate while sipping an iced Americano, completely indifferent to their panic. Meanwhile, two female seniors are standing nearby, scrolling through an anonymous post featuring a picture of Jinho. Even with part of his face obscured, they can feel his handsomeness radiating through the photo. One of the seniors mutters that there's no way someone like him could be their junior, while the other quietly hopes with all her heart that he really is. At that moment, Jinho approaches them and politely asks if they are seniors from the business administration department. The two women are stunned as they realize that the person in the photo is standing right in front of them. They quickly acknowledge that they are indeed seniors. Jinho immediately introduces himself, explaining that he is in charge of the entrance pledge and apologizing for arriving late. The freshmen, who had been enraged by his absence, cannot help but pause and swallow their anger when they see him in person. They realize that he truly looks impressive, commanding attention effortlessly. As Jinho begins reciting the pledge, the students who were angry moments ago find themselves captivated. Even those who were most irritated cannot help admitting that they like him even more now. Just 10 minutes earlier, some students had been speculating about him, how he could have a perfect CSAT score while looking so strikingly good-looking, how his suit alone must cost thousands of dollars. One student even recalls a chable hair wearing a tailcoat at an opening party and reasons that Jinho must be from a wealthy family, though he is not a known successor. The same student briefly considers scolding someone like Jinho, only to realize it would be futile, as a person like him could vanish without a trace at any moment. Deciding it's better to let it go, he simply watches, impressed and slightly intimidated. Jinho bows deeply, expressing sincere apologies for not contacting anyone and for missing the freshman orientation. He explains that he had thought the language study trip was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity and had completely forgotten about the orientation. He admits that he should have found contact information for the seniors and reached out in advance. The senior, however, waves off his concerns, reassuring him that orientation isn't mandatory and that they are not the type of old-fashioned seniors who would hold it against him. The senior then asks why Jinho keeps bringing up orientation. Jinho hesitates but explains that he had overheard the senior speaking loudly about him earlier. The senior, realizing the misunderstanding, apologizes and asks why Jinho is wearing a suit. Jinho initially wants to admit that it was simply to attract attention, but he quickly decides against it, not wanting to risk alienating his classmates and becoming a loner in college. Instead, Jinho improvises, claiming that he is dressed for a photoshoot interview for Korea tomorrow scheduled after the entrance ceremony. The senior is immediately shocked at the mention. Korea tomorrow is the country's first university magazine, coveted by nearly every ambitious Korea university student. The senior realizes that given Jinho's perfect scores and striking appearance, the school must be eager to showcase him. Jino continues, explaining that as soon as he received the offer, he had spent hours thinking about how to make readers associate Korea University's Business Administration Department, the most prestigious department in the school, with his pictorial. Even he cannot help but be impressed with how smoothly the words flow, a testament to the asterisk national top scorer asterisk skill at work. He elaborates further, reasoning that among the students of Korea University, the most intelligent young minds in the country, what type of clothing would best represent the Business Administration Department? After careful thought, he concludes that the only attire suitable and respectable for the department is a suit. Jino briefly wonders if he has overdone it, considering he could have simply blamed a friend for convincing him. However, the senior, completely impressed by Jino's poise and reasoning, tells him to call him brother, signaling genuine admiration and approval. Jae-jin is later seen at a convenience store, working his part-time shift, chuckling as he recalls the excuse Jino used for wearing a suit. He shakes his head laughing and says he can't believe Jino actually fell for it. Still grinning, he asks how Jino managed to keep his shoes on during the flight without looking awkward. Jae-jin then inquires about the photo shoot. Jino explains that the photographer kept snapping photos relentlessly, and he had to be stopped so he could move on to the interview. He adds that the senior handed him a thick stack of papers, printouts detailing professors' tendencies, majors, electives, class content, clubs, and more, so he could prepare properly. Jino mentions that he plans to change his course registration to guitar playing. Jae-jin raises an eyebrow, asking why. Jino explains that every young person in Korea should experience the dream of wearing jeans, slinging a guitar over their shoulder, and traveling the country. He imagines sitting on the campus lawn during free periods, strumming a guitar, and opening a can of beer, an idyllic, carefree image. Jae-jin remarks that Jino's taste seems a bit outdated, prompting Jino to retort jokingly that the ghost from the 80s should get out of his friend's body. The conversation turns to Jino's outfit. Jae-jin complains that wearing a white shirt under a red coat is the most disrespectful thing imaginable, claiming it makes no sense. Jino defends it, saying that red is bold and cool while white is clean. Jae-jin goes further, saying that if he were Jino's mother, he would cry every time he saw him in that combination. Just then, Jae-jin's mother, Shine Seo, the convenience store owner, knocks him lightly on the head and scolds him, reminding him that she's paying him double so he doesn't slack off. She adds that Jino's outfit was bought by his own mother, not by some random stylist. Jae-jin continues, commenting that the outfit has a truly avant-garde style, which finally prompts Jino to snap at him to shut up. Meanwhile, halfway across the world in Paris, the office of the French fashion brand Ciel is in chaos. The employees are stunned to hear that their chief designer is leaving for Korea just as Paris Fashion Week is approaching. The staff wonders aloud what could have driven him to make such a decision, especially since the company has just overcome a slump and they thought they could finally relax. Questions fly about how long it would take to find an unknown Asian model, but the chief designer calmly holds up a magazine with Jino's face on the cover and explains that he is going himself to Korea, the country where his muse awaits. 1 week ago, the head designer Tim Jones is trapped in a deep slump that he has never experienced before, and it has already lasted for more than a month. Every day, he sits surrounded by many empty cups of coffee, staring at them as if they might suddenly give him an answer. No matter how much coffee he drinks, inspiration refuses to come. There was a time when even the smell of coffee from his favorite shop was enough to spark new ideas in his mind. Now, coffee serves only one purpose, which is to keep him awake. In moments like this, he finds himself envying Mr. Lockerbelt, a man who always seems to gain inspiration easily from coffee. At one point, Tim even suspects that Mr. Lockerbelt might be relying on something unnatural to stay creative, and he feels a quiet fear of becoming that kind of designer himself. In the present day, Tim Jones breaks down in his seat, overwhelmed by emotion and jealousy. He continues to brood over his lack of inspiration and longs for a muse of his own. As he remains lost in his thoughts, nearby voices reach his ears. People around him speak with surprise about the brand choosing an Asian model, while women around admire how comfortable the suits look and consider buying them for their husbands. Tim leans slightly to take a look, and a sudden realization fills his mind. He reflects on the true power of fashion, which makes anyone who sees it want to wear it themselves. However, in the very next moment, he freezes in place, completely stunned by what he sees. Soon after, he returns to the office with renewed urgency. He informs his subordinates that by the next day, he wants a full list of every Asian male model who appears in the latest magazine. He also makes it clear that he intends to focus entirely on his work for the rest of the day and does not wish to be disturbed. One of the male workers reacts with visible anger, but a female worker calmly tells him to leave Tim alone. She reminds him that this behavior is nothing new and that once Tim Jones shows the childlike spark in his eyes, nothing and no one can stop him from chasing inspiration. Tim Jones is seen inside his studio, completely absorbed in his work as his hands move non-stop across the paper. The desk around him is covered with countless sketches, all of them showing the same man from different angles and poses. His excitement is impossible to hide, and his movements grow faster as inspiration pours out of him without pause. Just the thought of this image is enough to make ideas overflow, and his long creative drought finally shatters. He becomes certain that this is the answer he has been searching for, and he firmly believes that he will find this man no matter what it takes. In his mind, Junho's image has already taken root as his muse, the source of inspiration that reignites his passion as a designer. Elsewhere, Aunt Mayong is seen sitting calmly while looking at her tablet, her legs crossed in a relaxed manner. Junho notices this and recalls how she used to constantly scold him in the past, warning him that crossing his legs would ruin his posture and spine. The contrast amuses him, especially now that she herself is sitting comfortably with her legs crossed. Aunt Mayong carries herself with ease and confidence, firmly believing that once a person passes 40 and a half, they are free to live however they please. Junho hands her a bouquet of flowers and sincerely thinks that she looks far too young to be someone in her 40s. Aunt Mayong smiles brightly, interpreting his compliment as an attempt to flatter her, especially since she holds the largest share in the company. However, Junho does not feel that he is flattering her at all. To him, Aunt Mayong has always been the person who praises him more than anyone else, protecting the little pride he still holds onto. She is also the one who gives him a meaningful gift to celebrate his entrance into school. The weight of that generosity makes him uneasy, and he cannot help but feel that what he has received is far too valuable. Aunt Mayong then points out that he seems to have a good eye for choosing a bag, something she never expected from someone who shows little interest in fashion. Junho admits that he does not know much about bags, but he has seen the brand logo many times before. Aunt Mayong playfully claims that the bag is a cheap fake bought from a market for a small amount, which briefly puts Junho at ease. That relief vanishes instantly when she reveals that the bag is actually genuine, leaving him completely stunned. Aunt Mayong then reflects on how fascinating the value of a brand name can be. Sometimes it comes to represent sincerity itself, while at other times it greatly increases the price of ordinary items. In the past, a brand name once served as a promise of quality and performance. Now its value continues to rise simply because a famous mark is attached, giving an effect similar to a king's touch that turns everything to gold. Junho silently agrees with her thoughts, even as he wonders why she suddenly feels like sharing such a story with him. She then explains that it is only now that she can clearly see a King Midas touch in him. To her, it is strange that it took this long, since it is not as if she would fail to recognize such potential simply because he gained a little weight. The thought unsettles Junho, and he cannot help but wonder if she somehow knows that he has changed through a reset life. She soon shifts the topic and suggests that he drop out of school and come work in her company instead. In her eyes, it is rare these days to find someone like Junho, someone who has both striking looks and an impressive title. The idea of another company snatching him away fills her with concern, as she does not want to lose someone so valuable. Junho calmly brings up the fact that it has not been long since his entrance ceremony, and gently steers the conversation toward Ju-young's tutoring instead. The immediate goal is for Ji-young to score in the 70s in her English class. Aunt Mayong admits that her daughter has never once scored above the 20s in that subject. This makes Junho wonder why she never hired a tutor before, and the answer comes easily. Tutors have been hired in the past, but none of them last more than a month. Jo-young does not do her homework, barely listens during lessons, and never keeps track of time. In the end, the teachers are the ones who give up first. Over time, Ji-young grows arrogant, relying heavily on her aunt's powerful background. Even so, Junho does not believe the situation is hopeless. He remembers Ji-young as a pure child who happily played Pokemon all the way until 6th grade. With that memory in mind, he reassures Aunt Mayong that he will demonstrate the true ability of someone who achieved a perfect score on the college entrance exam. His confidence puts her at ease, and she brings up the topic of tutoring fees. Junho lightly insists that if she pays him too much, he might feel too embarrassed to ever show his face again. Later, Aunt Mayong arrives home and asks about Ji-young, only to be told that she is in her room. She walks over and knocks on her daughter's door, asking if she is inside. There is no response, but Mayong continues speaking, explaining that she canceled the English tutoring for the day and informing her that her new tutor will be Junho, the older brother who used to visit often. When her daughter still does not answer, Mayong briefly wonders what kind of mother she has been. At that moment, Ji-young slowly opens her door just a little and asks if it is true. A hint of excitement creeps into her voice as she asks whether she will really get to see her bear-like older brother, Junho, starting next week. It is Saturday at Dongdaemun Mall, and the place is crowded and lively. As Junho and Jaejin walk side by side, many ladies cannot help but blush when they notice their eyes follow the two young men, especially Junho, whose presence naturally draws attention. Jaejin, on the other hand, feels slightly annoyed and wonders why he has to spend such a nice day walking around Dongdaemun with another guy instead of relaxing somewhere else. Junho calmly explains that Jaejin has the best eye for clothes among their friends, so helping him choose outfits only makes sense. To Junho, friendship means relying on each other when it matters. Hearing this, Jaejin suddenly becomes excited and feels proud of his role. He even promises to treat Junho to whatever food he wants as long as it stays under 30,000 won. Jaejin then grows curious about what made Junho decide to change his style so suddenly. Junho explains that many things have happened recently. He shows Jaejin an online post about himself, where he is wearing an outfit with a terrible color combination. Junho admits that he only discovered this the day before. after installing the app for the first time. Although he always knew that people secretly took pictures of him, he never imagined that he would become known as an icon of bad fashion. Still, he finds a small silver lining in the situation, since it helped him make many friends in his department. Jaejin then wonders why Jinho chooses Dongdaemun out of all places, especially since it is full of low-priced brands. Jinho feels completely confident and believes that anything he wears will look like a luxury brand simply because it is on him. At the same time, he quietly thinks about Aunt Mayum's words. If what she said is true, then this visit might be his chance to repay a favor from 3 years ago to Deokje. Elsewhere, Deokje is seen answering a phone call, his face filled with shock. He has just received sudden news from one of his employees who wants to quit without warning. The timing makes everything worse, since the spring new arrival line has just been released that very day. Deokje owns a shopping mall, yet the caller angrily points out that Deokje has not paid salaries for 3 months. The call ends abruptly, leaving Deokje alone with his thoughts. Deokje begins to wonder why he is the only one failing while countless people walk past his store without even sparing it a glance. He has tried everything within his power. When it comes to fashion, he believes he is second to none. He even takes out loans to hire handsome and beautiful models to attract customers. He goes as far as asking a broker to boost his mall's ranking. In the end, all those efforts lead to the same result. He is now completely broke, with no money to buy clothes for the next day and no way to pay his employees' salaries. Deokje finally makes up his mind to give up. To him, 3 years in this industry already feels like a long time to endure. He accepts the idea that some people are simply meant to succeed, while others are not, no matter how hard they struggle. In his eyes, that is just how the world works, and resisting it only brings more pain. As he stands there in quiet resignation, his eyes catch sight of Jinho. Jinho is surrounded by several ladies, all clearly fascinated by him and unable to hide their admiration. Deokje watches from a distance and feels a strange bitterness rise within him. He thinks that if there is someone who can wear such terrible fashion and still look good, then there must also be a store so hopeless that not even a legendary designer like Andrew Kim could save it. In his tired mind, that store can only be his own. Just as he sinks deeper into that thought, he notices Jinho walking closer to his store. For a brief moment, Deokje assumes Jinho is just another passerby. Then he realizes that Jinho is looking directly at him. Jinho recognizes him and approaches, introducing himself with a familiar warmth that catches Deokje off guard. 3 years ago, Deokje is seen patiently teaching Jinho that selling clothes is not as simple as it looks. Jinho listens carefully and takes the work seriously, understanding the effort behind every sale. Deokje is impressed by his attitude and tells him that he is doing well. He even thinks ahead to the future, imagining that when he opens his second store, Jinho will become the manager there. At that time, Jinho asks for permission to film himself working using an app. Deokje agrees easily, believing that Jinho is seriously thinking about his future and practicing for a career. To Jinho, Deokje feels like a kind and reliable older brother, someone he can trust and look up to. Back in the present, Deokje admits that he was worried when the kid who came to the store consistently for 2 weeks suddenly vanished without a trace. Now that he looks closely, he realizes that the young man standing before him is that same Jinho, yet completely different from the boy he knew 3 years ago. Jinho feels apologetic for leaving back then without saying goodbye. He then asks if he can take a look at some clothes. Deokje shows him the latest new arrivals, even though his heart feels heavy. Jaejin joins in and points out that one of the shirts looks especially good. He thinks it would be the perfect finishing touch when paired with white canvas shoes. Deokje checks and confirms that he does have white canvas shoes. Jinho puts on the shirt and the white canvas shoes, then calmly shows himself. The clothes sit on him so naturally that they look like something straight out of a luxury brand. Deokje cannot help but agree with what he sees. He stands there in complete shock, staring at Jinho and silently wondering if those clothes truly came from his own store. Jaejin explains that there was always a reason why Jinho once did a model photo shoot. When Deokje hears this, something stirs inside him, and he begins to feel that this moment might be the very last chance given to him. Gathering what little courage he has left, he decides to ask for a favor. He hopes that Jinho can become a fitting model for his shop, believing that even 30 minutes will be enough. Jinho agrees without hesitation. He remembers how much time and effort Deokje invested in him 3 years ago, and he feels that helping now is only right. Jinho makes it clear that he does not want any payment in return, but Deokje stubbornly insists and opens his wallet. Inside, there is only 30,000 won. Both Jinho and Jaejin are left stunned by the sight. Deokje, however, claims that he will borrow money if needed, determined not to let this opportunity slip away. Later, Jinho and Jaejin walk out of the mall carrying many shopping bags in their hands. Even though Jinho knows that he bought everything at a cheap price, he cannot shake the feeling that he has received far more than he deserves. Jaejin casually points out that if Jinho had not shown up, those clothes would have been sent to an orphanage the very next day. No matter how Jaejin thinks about it, the situation feels unfair. Jinho only came to buy clothes, yet he somehow ends up making money instead. Hearing this, Jinho admits that this is exactly how he has felt toward Jaejin for the past 7 years. Ever since elementary school, even when they bought the same ice cream, Jaejin always seemed to get an extra scoop simply because he was handsome. Jaejin, however, has always believed that he was just a lucky person who happened to meet generous bosses, and he cannot understand how Jinho's thoughts take such a strange turn. As the conversation drifts toward food, Jaejin suddenly feels hungry and urges Jinho to buy him a meal. At that very moment, someone unexpectedly calls out Jinho's name. Jinho flinches in surprise, and both of them turn around to look. The person calling out is Bora, a former classmate from their middle school days. The sight of her instantly brings back an unpleasant memory for Jinho, reminding him of how she once expressed deep disgust after receiving a confession from someone she cruelly described as an ugly, overweight boy. Jinho says that he remembers her and asks how she managed to recognize him. Bora explains that he has become famous on social media as the friendly neighborhood oppa that everyone talks about. Jaejin watches the exchange with a hard expression on his face. He realizes that now that Jinho is handsome and well-known, Bora suddenly wants to act as if she is always known. In the past, she was the one who spread bad rumors out of anger after the confession, and then moved to another neighborhood because she lacked the confidence to face the situation she created. Bora casually claims that meeting like this is also a kind of fate and suggests that they grab a cup of coffee together. Jinho politely refuses, explaining that he's busy and about to leave. Bora is clearly shocked, yet she still pushes forward and asks if they can at least exchange phone numbers. Jinho refuses again, believing that she understands the reason better than anyone else. He says that it was nice meeting her and wishes her well before turning away. Jaejin immediately reacts, wondering why Jinho would tell someone like Bora to take care after all the suffering she caused him. Bora grows visibly irritated and snaps, questioning whether Jinho thinks she's flirting with him. She adds that his good looks are only temporary anyway. Before the situation can escalate further, Jaejin urges Jinho to hurry to the mall. He suddenly lifts Jinho onto his back and runs off, leaving Bora standing there in complete shock. Later, at Yeon and Pig House, the two of them sit together grilling pork. Jinho reflects that ignoring Bora so thoroughly will likely make her stop pretending that she knows him. Jaejin remarks that Jinho looked incredibly cool earlier and wonders why he did not act like that sooner. Jinho admits that if Bora had simply apologized back then, he believes he might be sitting in a cafe with her right. Even now, he still feels a slight emptiness inside. Jaejin immediately cuts in and says that the emptiness is clearly coming from an empty stomach. He hands Jinho a slice of freshly grilled meat. Jinho takes a bite and admits that it is not emotional emptiness at all, but hunger. Remembering the money Dyochi gave him, Jinho says that they should eat as much as they want today. An hour later, the total bill comes out to 140,000. Jinho cannot help but think that Jaejin truly eats like a pig, yet Jaejin immediately points out that Jinho also finishes 4 full servings by himself. The blame quickly becomes shared, and neither of them can fully deny it. Nearby, a woman receives a card advertising something called an ancestor church. She looks at it with confusion and mild suspicion, wondering what kind of strange fusion cult this might be. She cannot understand whether people truly believe in things like this or if they are simply throwing money away. At that moment, Jinho suddenly calls out to her attention. He gently suggests that the outfit she is wearing would suit her much better if she lets her hair down instead of tying it in a ponytail. The woman becomes completely mesmerized by his words and immediately agrees, her expression brightening as if she has just received valuable advice. Jinho then realizes something unsettling about himself. This is already the 5th time he has interfered in a stranger's fashion without meaning to. He starts to feel like he is slowly going crazy. Around the same time, he unknowingly unlocks a new skill through the act of posting a picture of himself online. The condition for unlocking it requires gaining 1,000 likes on social media and reading 10 fashion magazines at a hair salon. As a result, his sense of aesthetics rises sharply, almost to an extreme level. Now his eyes instinctively scan people around him, and an uncontrollable urge to criticize everyone's fashion begins to take root. Sensing the danger of losing control, Jinho forces himself to calm down. He reminds himself that today is an important day, as it is the club application day. With that in mind, he heads toward the club room. Inside, he spots a senior lying across the sofa, drooling slightly as he sleeps. The sight briefly worries Jinho, but the senior soon shows that nothing is wrong. Jinho explains that he is there to get a club application form. At once, the senior jumps up with surprising energy and eagerly lists different sports while pulling out the application papers. Jinho calmly chooses the tennis club, and the senior becomes visibly thrilled by the decision. The senior then reveals just how much attention Jinho has been drawing lately. The professors have their eyes firmly on him, especially after the magazine shoot, which leaves the dean extremely pleased. Because of this, a quiet competition has begun among the professors, each one trying to bring Jinho into their own club. The pressure from them has been relentless, and the senior has been under constant stress because of it. He has been struggling to think of a way to recruit Jinho, only for Jinho to walk in on his own. Adding to this situation is the fact that professors also serve as advisors for the clubs, making Jinho's choice far more valuable than it appears on the surface. The senior asks Jinho to contact him as early as possible within the day and warns him to be careful of the pressure that will come from the professors whose clubs were not chosen. Hearing this, Jinho quietly wonders if he is really that popular or if everything has suddenly grown out of proportion. Later on, during the self-introduction session in the business administration class, the professor openly shows interest in Jinho and confidently believes that Jinho will discover the joy of golf by the second semester. The attention does not stop there. In the principles of economics class, another professor casually brings up hiking while clearly directing the topic toward Jinho. Even in the cafeteria, yet another professor approaches and talks enthusiastically about soccer. Everywhere he goes, Jinho feels eyes following him. By the end of the day, Jinho explains to his senior that this constant attention from professors has followed him non-stop. The pressure feels overwhelming, even more stressful than the first time he ever played a dating simulation game, where every choice felt heavy and uncomfortable. Soon after, to senior hands Jinho his tennis equipment and officially welcomes him to the tennis club courts. Jinho steps inside and feels impressed by the sight before. Students are actively playing tennis, their movements sharp and energetic, filling the courts with life. The senior confidently assures him that he will understand everything after playing a few times. The other club members grow excited upon seeing Jinho join, happy to have someone so well-known become part of their group. However, that excitement quickly fades. Once Jinho actually starts playing, everyone freezes in disbelief. His movements are clumsy, his swings awkward, and his timing completely off. The students who moments ago were full of enthusiasm now stand dumbstruck, realizing that despite all the attention and expectations surrounding him, Jinho is shockingly terrible at it. Jinho bends down to pick up the tennis ball, already aware that things are not going well for him. The weight of the racket in his hand feels unfamiliar, reminding him that the only real time he has ever held one was during his performance assessment. Even though his seniors continue to cheer him on from the side, he clearly understands that his skills lag far behind everyone else. That realization sparks a sudden and tempting thought in his mind about unlocking a skill right now. If he were to activate the Tennis Crown Prince skill, he would instantly surpass everyone present, closing the gap in one decisive moment. The first condition for unlocking the skill, holding a racket, is already fulfilled, and the second condition only requires completing 100 rallies. He knows that the difficulty of completing a rally depends entirely on how generously the opponent plays. By choosing an easier shortcut, he could unlock the skill much faster, yet an uncomfortable feeling settles in his chest. Even though the method is efficient, it feels deeply wrong to him, and he cannot fully explain why that sense of resistance exists within him. A senior approaches and notices that Jinho is lost in thought, prompting Jinho to explain his feelings. He reflects on the fact that he scored 0 during his performance assessment and feels as though he is only causing trouble for the tennis club by joining without any real skill. The senior calmly attributes this to Jinho spending more time studying rather than participating in club activities. He then emphasizes that club activities are not meant to measure who is good or bad, nor are they solely about skill, but about enjoyment above all else. He observes that many young people are overly obsessed with competition, believing that falling behind even slightly is a serious failure, while in reality those who genuinely enjoy the process are the ones who ultimately grow the most. Jinho quietly agrees with this sentiment deep inside his heart. The senior later suggests that Jinho might be bored with endlessly practicing serve returns against the ball machine and offers to rally with him instead. Jinho chooses to decline and decides to continue practicing on his own for a while longer. As anxiety about falling behind nearly overwhelms him, he almost loses sight of what truly matters, which is the simple joy of being on the court and playing the game itself. Jinho later appears at Myung's residence, where he is politely attended to by the housekeeper. He is served neatly sliced apples, and after being asked what he would like to drink, he requests a soft drink. Although he has long known that Myung has become successful, he never once imagined that her life had reached the point where she would even have a housekeeper managing her home. The realization leaves him quietly astonished as he takes in the unfamiliar atmosphere of her residence. Not long after, Jiyoung arrives home from school, radiating happiness and energy the moment she steps inside. She immediately looks around for her teddy bear Appa, only for the housekeeper to inform her that her tutor is already waiting. Jinho gently waves at Jiyoung and she suddenly jumps to a bold conclusion, teasingly assuming that he must be her mother's secret boyfriend. The remark completely stuns Jinho, leaving him momentarily frozen in place. Jaeyoung confidently explains that she recognizes him from her mother's phone wallpaper, which displays a photo Myung took with Jinho on the day he gifted her a bouquet. Jinho is utterly shocked as the misunderstanding continues to spiral, fueled by Jiyoung's imagination and her lack of awareness that the man in front of her is actually Jinho himself. She complains dramatically that she should not have come home early and storms toward her room, insisting that her mother broke her promise first by failing to bring back her teddy bear Appa. She also declares that she has no intention of listening to her tutor. At that moment, Jinho instinctively calls her Pink Pig, a nickname he used back when she was a child. In those days, she had been mischievous and troublesome, often earning scolding and discipline from him. The familiar scene makes Jinho's mother hesitate and suggest to Myung that they might need to intervene, but Myung calmly dismisses the concern, confident that Jinho is simply correcting Ji-young's attitude for them. As Jinho instinctively raises his arm, recalling how his playful slaps once made a loud sonic boom when he was younger, he suddenly realizes that his arm no longer carries the same weight. Before he can even react, Ji-young has already dropped to her knees with her hands raised in surrender. Jinho reassures her that he is not there to scold her, but to help her instead. He understands how difficult things must be for her, especially since Mayang has been constantly busy, and with her recent promotion, Ji-young barely gets to see her mother even on weekends. He promises that he will visit her every week from now on, offering her a sense of stability and reassurance. Overwhelmed with happiness, Ji-young immediately embraces him, clinging tightly as if all her frustration melts away in an instant. The housekeeper watches the scene in complete disbelief, utterly stunned by how Jinho manages to transform Ji-young from a defiant child into a gentle and obedient lamb in such a short amount of time. Mayang is later seen at her office within the company, surrounded by the quiet tension of her work environment when she receives a call from her housekeeper. Through the call, she is informed that Ji-young began reviewing her studies almost immediately after Jinho left the house, showing an unusual level of focus and discipline. Although the housekeeper expresses some concern, noting that Jinho seems to be teaching Ji-young very basic conversational habits rather than strict academic material, Mayang responds with calm confidence. She reassures the housekeeper by explaining that Jinho is the top entrant to Korea University, someone whose abilities and judgment can be trusted without question. She then expresses her sincere gratitude to the housekeeper for continuously taking good care of Ji-young in her absence. After the call ends, Mayang finds her thoughts drifting back to her daughter. A quiet sense of regret settles in as she reflects on the situation, thinking that if she had known things would turn out this way, she would have contacted Jinho much earlier. With a faint smile forming as she imagines the improvement in her daughter's behavior, she resolves to see Jinho the following day, feeling both relieved and quietly grateful for his presence in their lives. Jinho is later seen completing 100 consecutive rallies, each exchange flowing more smoothly than the last, until the condition is finally fulfilled and the skill known as Tennis Crown Prince is obtained. The moment marks a quiet turning point for him, not accompanied by celebration, but by a calm sense of certainty that his efforts have reached a meaningful result. Back at college, Jinho sits down to carefully draft Ji-young's tutoring plan. As he reviews her responses and recalls their earlier sessions, he realizes that she understands many advanced words and answers simple questions with ease. These observations clearly show that she is not lacking in intelligence at all. Instead, her struggles are the lingering effects of having lost her motivation to study for a long time, allowing her confidence and interest to slowly fade rather than her ability itself. During one of their lessons, Ji-young casually expresses the idea that no matter how much her mother is paying for tutoring, Jinho does not need to put in full effort. She believes that her mother does not truly care about her results anyway, since even when she scores well, the response she receives is limited to brief praise. Jinho reflects on this mindset and notes inwardly that many other children would envy her for having a mother who responds with calm encouragement rather than pressure or scolding. Ji-young recalls that this sense of emotional distance first became clear to her in 6th grade. She noticed that when other children received high scores, their mothers would prepare their favorite meals, and when their scores were low, they would sit together to study and review mistakes. In contrast, when she achieved a perfect score, her mother merely acknowledged it before returning to work, handing her a bank card and telling her to go enjoy herself. What made it worse was the fact that she did not even have friends to go out with at the time, leaving her alone with her feelings. Jinho gently reminds her of memories she seems to have forgotten. Back when she often visited his house, she always ate organic food prepared personally by her mother. Every meal had been carefully made because of Ji-young's health condition, showing constant attention and concern that went unnoticed. Ji-young is visibly surprised by this revelation. Jinho continues by explaining that her mother had even gone so far as to rearrange a refrigerator in their home to accommodate her dietary needs. He reflects that he only brings this up because Ji-young may not realize that her mother is simply not the type of person who expresses her feelings openly, choosing instead to show her care through quiet actions rather than obvious words or gestures. Back in the present, Jinho reflects on the situation and comes to the conclusion that no matter how sincerely he tries to explain Mayung's feelings, it would only sound like a plead for understanding. To him, that kind of explanation merely shifts responsibility and never truly resolves the problem at its core. He reasons that what matters far more is understanding Ji-young's emotions directly and filling the emptiness that has formed inside her heart over time. As this thought settles, he receives a message from Senior Bai Youngjae informing him about a friendly tennis match scheduled between the Business Administration Department and the Economics Department. Soon after, Jinho arrives at the tennis court where Youngjae loudly calls out to him the moment he appears. Youngjae notes that Jinho seems to have skipped class again, only for Jinho to explain that the lecture has been cancelled. Jinho also notices that the court is unusually crowded today, far more than expected for a simple friendly match. Youngjae casually remarks that many students likely skip their classes just to catch a glimpse of Jinho, pointing out that a top-ranked student with a perfect CSAT score and good looks is a rare sight on campus. Nearby, one of the economics tennis club members throws a taunt in Youngjae's direction, commenting on how he is not running around the court today as usual. Youngjae responds with a sharp glare, making it clear that he already explained his absence as a result of a hangover. Watching the two sides exchange barbs so naturally, Jinho realizes that the rumors about the rivalry between the business administration and economics departments are not exaggerated at all. The tense atmosphere escalates when an economics freshman reacts with visible irritation, assuming that Jinho's calm smile comes from believing himself superior simply because he ranked first. Jinho feels the urge to snap back, but he restrains himself and instead calmly identifies the freshman as the second-ranked student. At that point, the captain of the economics tennis club steps in and suggests settling things differently this time. He proposes a direct matchup between Jinho, the top freshman, and their own second-place freshman. Youngjae hesitates at the idea, pointing out that Jinho is still a complete beginner and questioning whether such a match would be appropriate. The economics captain quickly dismisses the concern by explaining that their second-ranked freshman is also entirely new to tennis, casually spinning the racket in his hand as proof of his inexperience. Youngjae later informs Jinho that no one actually expects him to win the match, explaining that his role is simply to step onto the court and entertain the seniors watching from the sidelines. Jinho calmly acknowledges this expectation. At the same time, he reflects on the many abilities he's been eager to test ever since unlocking his new skills, realizing that this match presents the perfect opportunity to put them into practice without pressure or consequences. Across the court, the second-place freshman cannot hide his irritation. He openly vents his frustration over the fact that someone he considers overly obsessed with appearances managed to take first place from him. His resentment continues to build as he fixates on the idea that Jinho's top ranking might be the result of sheer luck rather than genuine ability. Jinho, however, reacts with ease and accepts the notion of being lucky without hesitation, which only further fuels the freshman's anger. Despite the hostility, Jinho remains completely unbothered, finding the insults childish and insignificant, especially when compared to the ridicule he endured during his chubbier days. As Jinho prepares to indicate possession of the serve, the freshman abruptly launches the ball without warning. Acting purely on instinct, Jinho reacts and counters the serve, yet the freshman manages to land a clean strike and secures the first point at 15-love. Youngjae reacts with visible frustration, upset that the economics freshman served without any proper signal. The freshman, however, acts smug, expressing mock sympathy for how easily he scored and implying that Jinho's inexperience left him unprepared for something as basic as a sudden serve. Despite this taunt, the freshman is inwardly surprised, having intentionally tried to catch Jinho off guard only to see him return the ball regardless. Jinho, for his part, remains composed, recognizing that his only mistake was failing to anticipate such behavior on the very first serve. When it becomes Jinho's turn to serve, his thoughts briefly drift back to the freshman's hostility. He wonders whether the aggression truly stems from losing first place, feeling that such a reason seems far too immature. For a moment, he even considers the possibility of elaborate psychological tactics meant to unsettle him. That assumption quickly collapses when he catches sight of the freshman's barely contained rage. In that instant, Jinho realizes that he has overestimated his opponent, understanding that the animosity in front of him is driven not by strategy but by simple, unrefined resentment. Jinho sends the ball forward with precise control, and it lands cleanly on the baseline in a way that appears flawless to the eye. Despite this, the opponent immediately insists that the shot is out, and Jinho calmly accepts the call without protest. At the same time, a group of students from the fashion department gathers nearby, openly expressing far more interest in borrowing Jinho as a model to mold a mannequin than in watching the actual tennis match unfolding on the court, showing little concern for the outcome of the game. Its score quickly tilts to 40-0. Youngjae grows visibly furious at the situation and confronts the economics tennis club captain, demanding that something be done about the opponent who is obsessively calling balls out at every opportunity. The captain remains indifferent, explaining that without an umpire, all calls rely entirely on the player's judgment and discretion. He also downplays the seriousness of the situation, emphasizing that this is nothing more than a friendly match between beginners and questioning why Youngjae is becoming so emotionally invested. In contrast to the rising tension around him, Jinho maintains his composure. He effortlessly lands the ball on the very tip of his racket with refined control, demonstrating a level of finesse that contradicts his status as a beginner. At the same time, he reassures Youngjae inwardly, accepting the idea that, as the economics senior pointed out, this is simply a beginner-friendly match where enjoyment matters more than the score or fairness of calls. He reflects that he never intended to seriously compete against someone as discourteous as the freshman in the first place. His decision to overlook the repeated falls comes from a desire to freely test his newly acquired skills rather than to prove dominance. However, he also recognizes that the next technique he plans to try will be especially effective against an opponent who lacks sportsmanship, making the situation oddly convenient for experimentation. Elsewhere by the court, Tim Jones is quietly absorbed in sketching, his eyes fixed on Jinho with fascination as he draws a portrait of him. While Jinho is taking a drink of water, Youngjae asks how he manages to pull that circus act earlier, wondering whether Jinho is really a complete beginner, which startles Jinho, but he quickly explains that the economics department senior says earlier that even if one is not good at studying, one can still twirl a pen. Youngjae also points out that Jinho's form today is strangely professional, after which Jinho immediately retorts that it must be the brilliant result of Youngjae's teaching, making Youngjae happy, while their opponents, the economics department senior and the freshman, are pissed off seeing them happy, and the senior tells the freshman to make sure he wins against Jinho. The game resumes and the freshman taunts Jinho to give up, admitting that he might have lost in luck but insisting that he will not lose in tennis skills. Jinho retorts that the freshman is pretending to be a beginner while embarrassingly slaughtering civilians. The freshman fires back that embarrassment is for losers and claims that people talk a lot about how such behavior goes against sportsmanship in Hollywood action sports, or how it is not embarrassing, but that if one is really angry, it is because it is cowardly. He insists that people are actually angry because their team might lose when the other side does it, calling it cowardly, but when their side does it, they call it clever. Jinho claims that in this winner-takes-all society, people assume everyone else is like them, which pisses the freshman off. Jinho then claims that if the freshman plays games with that mindset, it will get boring, adding that he might understand it if the freshman were a pro, but this is just a hobby. He adds that regardless of winning or losing, simply imitating techniques from manga can be so much fun. Jinho serves the ball toward the edge of his opponent's court, and the freshman is already running toward the ball, realizing that it is quite fast, but not impossible to catch. The freshman feels confident that he can hit the ball easily the moment it bounces, but to his shock, the ball suddenly bounces toward his face, making him immediately squat down in fear, while Youngjae and the economics department senior are shocked at what just happens. They recognize the technique Jinho just pulls as the American twist serve, and Youngjae claims it comes from Tennis Prince Season 8 Episode 10, the Ultra Tornado Shot, which leaves the senior stunned by the nerdy details Youngjae provides. The economics freshman is still shaken from surprise, thinking about what would have happened if he had not dodged the ball, but he is interrupted by Jinho, who coolly asks him to get up and claims that they are still not there yet. At that moment, someone shouts bravo and rushes toward Jinho, startling him, as a smooching sound is heard, much to the shock of the audience who wonder what kind of pervert the person is, only to realize that it is actually Tim Jones, the chief designer of Sur Home, who is seen asking the horrified Jinho to show his left cheek. One of the students from the clothing and textiles department immediately video calls his professor to show Tim Jones, leaving the professor totally shocked as he asks the student to zoom in closer on Tim Jones, while Youngjae is pissed off that Jinho's match is stopped by the so-called Tim Jones, whom he is not impressed by, and he demands that everyone get lost. Tim Jones then apologizes, explaining that when he sees Jinho defeat the villain and strike the perfect pose, he cannot control himself, while Jinho is stunned and thinks that he is only copying a manga. Tim Jones then reveals that he is here because he wants Jinho to wear his clothes and asks him to look at a book, and Jinho has no choice but to look because he can see how determined Tim Jones is. Jinho is completely stunned by the many portraits he sees, finding them totally perfect, and he realizes that ever since he gains the neighborhood fashionista skill, he has never been 100% satisfied with any fashion. He cannot stop himself from making many fascinated comments about Tim Jones' clothing designs, claiming that if he can wear something like this even once in his life, then that would truly mean a successful life, while Tim Jones is completely mesmerized by these comments. Jinho cannot help but wonder if he somehow shoots Tim Jones with something, thinking that Tim Jones should not understand what he says in Korean. Tim Jones claims that even if languages are different, sincerity goes beyond them, and Aunt Mayong adds that it is the same way Jinho was moved by those clothes, which surprises Jinho as he notices his aunt. Tim Jones excitedly calls her Angela, and they exchange greetings while kissing both of each other's cheeks. Aunt Mayong notices Jinho and explains that it is called a bisu, a greeting where people do not touch lips and only pretend to kiss, while Jinho reasons that Tim Jones actually touches his lips to his cheek. Jinho then remarks that he likes women, and Tim Jones also claims the same, adding that they have many things in common. Jinho asks Aunt Mayong why she is here, and she explains that she comes to hang out with him, calling him her son as they are all inside her car. Jinho claims that he still has classes, but Aunt Mayong insists that it is not too late for him to drop out. Jinho asks Aunt Mayong if Tim Jones is the vice president of Sur Korea, and Aunt Mayong confirms that this is true, explaining that Tim searches everywhere for him, because Jinho is not an official model and all Tim knows is that Jinho is Asian and what his face looks like. Jinho then asks how Tim finds him, and Aunt Mayong explains that Tim recognizes Jinho in the background picture on her phone during a video conference, after which Jinho asks her to change the background picture, remembering the misunderstanding it causes when Ji-young sees him. Jinho then asks Aunt Mayong that if she's going out, why she does not bring Ji-young with her, as she should already be out of school by now. At that time, there is a holdup on the road, and Aunt Mayong says no. Jinho tries to talk to Aunt Mayong, explaining that he knows she finds it difficult with Ji-young and that she should be spending more time with her daughter, but Aunt Mayong insists no. Aunt Mayong then explains that minors are not allowed in clubs, and they arrive at the club. She then asks Jinho if she should bring Ji-young, and Jinho admits that he says something terrible, realizing why Ji-young is the way she is. Aunt Mayong asks what she should do, saying that she is a complete zero as a mother, and Jinho advises that if she makes an effort now, she can still become an 80-point mother, while he also offers to help her. As Jinho takes a drink, he cannot help but notice people dancing, and he realizes that clubs are amazing places because everything is flashy and sparkly. Above all, he notices a beautiful woman smiling at him, making him blush, and he cannot help but think that with so many beautiful people in the world, he wonders why he has never seen them before. Aunt Mayong then asks whether those people look ordinary to him, and she explains that there may be some ordinary people, but most of them are celebrities or models who probably secretly followed Tim Jones after hearing about his visit to Korea. She explains that while they seem to be happily dancing, they are actually desperately waving to catch Tim Jones or Seer's attention. Jinho remarks that it is self-promotion disguised as coincidence, and Aunt Mayong notes that Jinho seems to be accepting this situation surprisingly quickly. Aunt Mayong claims that all those people are wasting their time because Tim Jones' lover is Jinho, and Jinho responds that he feels like he is developing trauma from the word lover because of her constant use of it. Aunt Mayong then asks if he really refuses to do modeling, and Jinho explains that he does not want to sign with an agency. Aunt Mayong claims that he does not want to belong anywhere but also will not stop people from approaching him, and Jinho states that this is exactly right. Aunt Mayong then claims that it would be better to place Jinho on the Seoul Fashion Week stage at least once, or rather that it should be Paris Fashion Week instead. Jinho retorts that if Aunt Mayong shows even half of that level of devotion to Jiyoung, then Jiyoung would not have turned out like this. Aunt Mayong cannot help but sulk over the fact that she is a 0-point mother, and Jinho tells her that the first thing she should do is change her phone background to Jiyoung. Aunt Mayong then asks whether Jinho is not going to have fun and tells him that he should enjoy himself, promising to keep everything that happens today a secret from Jinhee. Jinho retorts that he does not believe her, especially coming from someone who gossips on the phone about how many times he goes to the bathroom at night. Aunt Mayong then makes a bet that if she tells Jinhee about today, she will buy Jinho a foreign car, claiming that he should know the sewer vice president does not joke about money and telling him to go have fun without worrying. However, Director Joe steps in and claims that if Aunt Mayong breaks her promise, then she will sue her and take over her vice president position. Aunt Mayong stares at Director Joe, who comments on whether that is not funny, while Aunt Mayong claims that Director Joe's jokes always sound so serious that they are scary. Jinho is then seen heading to the dance floor, where he gets bumped from behind and grabs onto a hand for support. He apologizes to the woman he grabs, and she tells him it is fine, while commenting that Jinho is very handsome and asking if he is a Seoul exclusive model. She invites him to dance with her and even eat with her, but Jinho claims that he is leaving. Jinho is later seen in the restroom with Tim Jones, who asks why Jinho is not enjoying himself. Jinho explains that those people are here for Sewer and not for him, and that even though everything feels nice, he needs to leave before he causes more trouble. Tim Jones is impressed by Jinho's good instincts and strong self-control. He then asks where Jinho plans to go next, and Jinho replies with a smile that he plans to go enjoy the authentic Korean nightlife. They then go to a karaoke bar where they eat chicken, drink beer, and also sing together for a while. Later, they get chocolate bomb lags, which work as a hangover cure, and Tim Jones admits that he claims that the mix of beer and chicken is incredible, and adds that the next time Jinho visits his country, he will treat him very well. Jinho asks where Tim Jones is from, and Tim Jones explains that he is from England. Jinho then asks what Tim Jones wants from him in exchange for those clothes, because he does not believe that Tim Jones would come all this way just for him, even if the clothes are made for him. Tim Jones eventually reveals that he wants Jinho to walk in his fashion show, because he wants to show the world what a true muse looks like. However, he also claims that this plan will not work since his muse would end up being shared with other designers, and he cannot even stand the thought of that. Jinho then offers to be his muse only by inspiring his designs without appearing on public runways. Tim Jones does not want that because he wants to brag to other designers that they do not have a muse like Jinho, and he also does not want to share him. Jinho then realizes that Tim Jones is actually like a child who loves to show off a new game console but refuses to share it with anyone else. Jinho claims that he does not think he can be hidden just because Tim Jones tries to hide him, and he shows Tim Jones the home shopping site for the clothes he is wearing at that moment, where the traffic limit has already been exceeded. Jinho explains that he is able to hear about this because he knows the owner, and that since evening product inquiries using the keyword Korea University lead Jinho have been flooding and non-stop. Tim Jones then realizes that evening is exactly when they officially start going around together. Jinho points out that if this level of attention comes simply from being seen with Tim Jones, then he can easily imagine how much more interest there will be if he actually wears Tim Jones' clothes. He adds that in today's world, where the entire planet is connected through social media, such attention would spread uncontrollably. Jinho claims that it would be better to reveal things directly rather than let the situation grow on its own, and he also explains that his conscience will not allow him to wear such excellent clothes for free. Tim Jones can only agree to think more deeply about the issue, and he informs Jinho that he is returning to France in 3 days and that his next planned visit will take a very long time away. He then makes a request that no matter how long it takes, Once the clothes are completed, Jinho should come immediately and wear them. Jinho agrees with a handshake, stating that no matter how long it takes, if Tim Jones calls him, he will come right away. The very next day, Jinho sees Tim Jones again and notices the dark circles under his eyes, clearly showing that he does not sleep at all the previous night, and Jinho realizes that Tim Jones is truly not an average eccentric person. Jinho is later seen together with Tim Jones as they join a video call with Sewer's CEO. The CEO of Sewer, Pietro Batari, looks at Jinho with clear interest and feels impressed, while Jinho is amazed at first, but then thinks that he is slowly no longer surprised by anything anymore. Pietro states that he can clearly see why Tim Jones drops everything and flies all the way to Korea. Pietro pushes for Jinho to become a Sewer model immediately, but Tim Jones firmly claims that Jinho is his muse. Pietro attempts to explain that this is an issue related to the group's overall sales, only for Tim Jones to counter by suggesting that they might as well share Jinho with X-Witten too, making his stance very clear. Pietro can only agree to Tim Jones' demand and thanks Jinho for becoming Tim Jones' muse. He explains that they bring Tim Jones in as a designer for innovation, but Tim Jones has such strong wanderlust that he never settles in one place, and Pietro feels that Tim Jones might finally settle down now. He adds that while a free-spirited artist may look attractive to the public, that type is the worst possible partner in business. Tim Jones immediately counters this by pointing out that in return he makes the company an enormous amount of money as long as they wait. Pietro then offers Jinho a sponsorship from Sewer for the next 3 years as a sign of gratitude. He explains that they will provide everything from clothes to socks, including all unreleased new items, and depending on the situation, they will even support him with a hairstylist. Jinho only needs to always wear the premium items they provide. Pietro explains that they do this because they cannot allow such talent to go to other brands. Jinho apologizes and states that he has to decline the offer, which leaves Tim Jones stunned. Pietro wonders why and considers whether Jinho understands the opportunity he is turning down or if he prefers another brand, but Jinho makes it clear that it is neither. Jinho explains that while luxury brands are nice and sponsorships are even better, the most important thing to him is the new life that begins after that day. He adds that if his life has to be restricted to only wearing luxury items, then he does not need it. He explains that beautiful and stylish things should be worn and appreciated even if they do not come from Sewer. Pietro feels impressed by this and states that Tim Jones truly finds a real muse. He apologizes to Jinho if his earlier words cause any misunderstanding, admitting that he mistakenly takes Jinho for one of the people who would do anything just to wear Sewer. Jinho admits that he also reacts a little too sensitively. Pietro remarks that Jinho is polite, which makes him want Jinho even more, and he reveals that he already gives instructions to Sewer Korea to allow Jinho to take any clothes he wants. He clearly states that this is a gift and not a sponsorship, and that Jinho should feel free to take items for his family, neighbors, and acquaintances as well. Jinho smiles and teasingly comments that Pietro will regret saying that, realizing that Yume's CEO can joke, which shows that he is human after all. Later, Jinho appears at Sewer Korea, where Aunt Mayong tells him to take everything he wants. Jinho only takes 2 shirts, which surprises Aunt Mayong as she points out that this is only about 3 million won in value and that Pietro would hardly regret it. Aunt Mayong immediately calls Jinho's mother and tells her to come over right away, claiming that it is finally time to enjoy the benefits of having a talented son through luxury bags. Jinho's parents are later seen inside the store, completely fascinated by the luxury items around them, and Jinho cannot help but ask Aunt Mayong if this situation is really acceptable. Aunt Mayong explains that if Pietro says to take everything, then Jinho truly can take everything. Jinho feels bad about it, thinking that he has not actually done anything yet. Aunt Mayong then tells him that he has already made a huge contribution to Sewer's sales for at least the next 3 years, explaining that even 1 trillion would be a joke compared to the amount of sales Jinho will generate, so a few products do not matter at all. Jinho is stunned by such a massive number and starts thinking about how many pounds of pork belly that amount would equal. Aunt Mayong immediately tells him not to think like that, saying that he is a treasure to Sewer just by existing, so he must take very careful care of himself. Jinho tells her to calm down and explains that he will not gain weight anyway because of his skill. Jinho then asks Aunt Mayong if there is anything he can do for Sewer, explaining that he has gained confidence and now truly believes that he will succeed. Aunt Mayong cannot help but feel surprised and wonders when Jinho grows up to become like this. She then tells him to come with her, explaining that there are quite a few things she wants to suggest to him anyway, and that he cannot back out now. Jinho's father quietly looks at his wife, who is smiling at herself in the mirror while wearing new luxury clothes, and he cannot help but remember the past when his wife often cries and wonders why life is always so hard. She claims that she has never lived lazily even once since she is born, and that by the time she comes to her senses, she is already struggling to pay monthly rent and the lease deposit loan. She recalls that even when her luxury bag bursts, she wonders if a day will ever come when she can laugh it off and say that it is just a few hundred won. Jinho's father cannot help but feel that all of this happens because of him, as he remembers how his own father sells their only cow just to prepare his tuition since he is the eldest son, causing his younger siblings to miss out on many things. He plans to support everyone until they find proper jobs and repay all the debt. And with that resolve, he proposes to Jinho's mother and marries her. She tells him that she never regrets marrying him and that he should not wear such a guilty expression. Now, as he looks at his wife's bright and happy smile, he cannot help but feel deep gratitude toward his son. Later, he is seen at a bar together with Jinho, calling himself a sinner as he drinks down a large cup of beer. He says that Jinho's mother suffers too much because of him, and he asks how much the bags cost, to which Jinho explains that they are about 5 million won each. His father worries and asks whether Jinho is really allowed to accept such expensive bags, and Jinho reassures him that it is fine because he also agrees to help with some work. At that moment, two women approach them politely and ask if Jinho is the handsome Korea University guy they see on social media, hoping to take a picture with him. They say that they have been fans since his days as the friendly neighborhood oppa, mentioning that his fashion sense is very unique back then. Jinho asks them to forget about that time, and one of the women also comments that his father is very handsome as well. Jinho's father then asks about the meaning of the Korea University handsome guy title, and Jinho explains that it is simply a nickname he gets online, proudly adding that he is somewhat popular with women. His father tells him not to worry about marriage, saying that his future daughter-in-law will live a more luxurious life than anyone else and that he will buy a house, a car, and a gold ring, even if he has to take out loans. Jinho reminds his father that he just says he should not fall into debt again. 3 days later, on the day of Tim Jones' departure, Jinho is seen sending Tim Jones off at the farewell. Tim Jones shows gratitude for Jinho's help, and Jinho says that it is an honor. Tim Jones expresses his hope to see Jinho in France next time and mentions that the CEO is also looking forward to having dinner with him. Jinho says that if he gets the chance, he will definitely come. They wave at each other as Tim Jones leaves, and Jinho then looks down at his phone to check Aunt Mayong's message, which contains details about his upcoming schedule. Meanwhile, at Aunt Mayong's house, Aunt Mayong is seen remarking that as soon as she becomes vice president, Jinho also steps up, and that one can never really know how life will turn out. She places her phone down on the table, and Ji-young notices it and goes to check the phone, where she sees a picture of herself as a child being used as the background image. Ji-young sneaks a look around and then takes a selfie, thinking that she is much prettier now and wondering why her mother uses a photo from her first birthday party. Elsewhere, a man is seen with a guitar bag slung over his back, commenting that his life as a professor is coming to an end while also remarking on how beautiful the day is. This man turns out to be Professor Jung Myungjin, who was once a fairly successful guitarist but is now considered a has-been. 2 weeks earlier, he checks his course reviews and is completely shaken when he sees that the enrollment is only 5 students and that the course reviews are utterly destroyed. With his mental state also falling apart, he plays the guitar on the campus grounds like a homeless person. He cannot help but think that if the course gets canceled again, then his contract as a professor will truly end. He mutters that there is no one else to blame, since he is the one who hands out C's and F's for a lack of romance in performances. He understands that no matter how loved something is, all mainstream things eventually become non-mainstream, and what goes up must come down. As generations change, trends also change. Of course, the older generation does not disappear, but at least at Korea University, it is clearly the territory of the new generation. He cannot help but worry that if he is fired as a professor, he has no idea how he will make a living. Even as a former Korea University professor, he is not competitive without a practical music major, and if he returns to the music industry, he lacks confidence in beating his juniors, which he believes is his own fault. Later, a female student is seen explaining that the class is famous for its harsh grading and wondering why anyone would choose such a class. Jinho admits that it is embarrassing to explain, but he shares that a friend once tells him that he smells like an old man, yet he still has a dream, which is to sit on the campus grass and play the guitar. At that moment, the professor enters the classroom and is completely shocked to see so many students filling the seats. After Lee Jinho's schedule is leaked on the school community, the professor's course enrollment increases by about 1,000%. The professor cannot help but feel overwhelmed with emotion, saying that it feels like a dream that brings tears to his eyes as he quietly wipes his eyes in disbelief. Jinho is seen playing the guitar inside the car, and director Jo comments that it is a nice guitar and wonders if Jinho buys it recently. Jinho explains that the elected professor gives it to him as a thank you for saving the class from being cancelled, and that the professor says the guitar is one he uses during his prime. Director Jo asks for the professor's name, and when Jinho tells him, Director Jo reacts with interest, explaining that the professor is not a super mainstream figure, but among those who know, he is well known. Director Jo also jokingly adds that if Jinho ever runs out of money, he should get the professor's autograph on the guitar and sell it on the Apple market, saying it would sell for a high price. Jinho looks stunned and thinks of it as hitting the jackpot, while Director Jo feels pleased that Jinho always accepts jokes well. Director Jo mentions that many people say the vice president and the executives look awkward or scary, and Jinho thinks that jokes depend on who receives them. Director Jo then brings up the photo shoot scheduled for the day and asks whether Jinho feels nervous. Jinho states that he has already done a few photo shoots before, but Director Jo explains that this one is different, and that he should feel even more pressure. Director Joe explains that the magazine where the photos will appear is X Magazine, which has the highest recognition among countless fashion magazines around the world. He adds that the pride of a group reflects the pride of its members. At the same time, a female staff member from X Magazine is seen complaining that placing such an amateur model on the cover shows that Seor is declining. The photographer adds that the person does not even look like a model, but just an ordinary person. Another staff member argues that since it is Seor, the model cannot be ordinary. The woman then reminds them that Seor Korea recently changes its vice president and that rumors say the model is the son of the vice president's friend, leading another staff member to agree that Seor Korea's downfall is confirmed. Director Joe explains that when the first button is fastened wrongly in a situation like this, the problem becomes bigger than Jinho being embarrassed alone. He explains that it would damage the reputation of Seor Korea, which actively promotes Jinho, so Jinho must clearly prove himself. Jinho later arrives at the studio, and the staff are stunned when they see him. Jinho introduces himself with calm confidence and elegance, leaving a strong impression. After the shoot, the workers are asked about their experience working with Jinho. The photographer admits that although Jinho is an ordinary person, his skills are extraordinary. The other two workers also give positive comments and say they hope to work with him again in the future. When asked whether they want to go into Jinho's waiting room to talk to him, they all refuse, saying that Jinho is currently doing something far more important than the photo shoot. It is revealed that Jinho is practicing for the MT talent show scheduled for the next day. Jinho feels glad that he can practice the guitar inside the waiting room, thinking that if he does well enough, he might be able to unlock the skill before going to the MT. The skill is called Rooftop Star, and its unlock conditions require him to receive a guitar as a gift from someone else, listen to 30 songs 10 times each, and then perfectly play each one 10 times. He reasons that if time is tight, this skill is as hard to obtain as becoming a national top student. When he thinks about the second condition, which requires playing 30 songs 10 times each, he realizes that to perfectly learn even one song, he needs to practice it at least 10 times. That means he must play at least 300 times in total, and assuming each song lasts 3 minutes, it adds up to a minimum of 15 hours. Still, he feels relieved because the elected professor teaches him very carefully, and he also practices a lot in karaoke with help from Jaejin. By carefully using every spare moment, Jinho manages to reduce the requirement down to just one song left. However, he finds it difficult to continue playing because there are cuts on his fingers. After all, humans wear out when used too much, both the body and the mind. 3 years earlier, a female rookie singer is seen performing on stage looking very confident at the time. She believes that once her album comes out, people will listen to her songs and recognize her as a pure singer-songwriter under the blue sky. However, her first and second albums both end in complete failure. She is then advised to switch to dance music for her third album, and she is told that the response to the third album is extremely strong, so much so that the CEO personally arranges a magazine interview. She agrees without much emotion and even secretly hopes that the third album will fail as well. Deep down, she feels that if she succeeds with songs she does not create herself, while wearing short clothes and singing childish lyrics, then those songs will end up defining her identity. She excuses herself to go to the bathroom, and afterward, the manager receives a call from the CEO, explaining that Seol is depressed because her lifelong pride lies in her composition and guitar skills, and that pride is deeply hurt. Later, Seol is seen staring at the clouds outside when she suddenly hears a melody. Her expression changes to surprise and she rushes toward the source of the sound. The melody leads her to Jinho's waiting room where she sees Jinho playing the guitar. Jinho is also surprised when he notices her. She sits with him and encourages him to keep playing, and Jinho continues, realizing that the pain in his fingers has completely stopped. Seol's manager is seen being on a call with the CEO, explaining that Seol is missing after she went to the bathroom 20 minutes ago and still has not come back, while the CEO insists that the manager immediately goes to find her because she should not be in any kind of trouble, which causes the manager to retort internally that the CEO should not be saying such unlucky things. Even then, the manager cannot help but think about how Seol had previously said that she wants to quit. At that moment, he hears a melody coming from an open room where Seol is seen singing while Jinho plays the guitar, and he appears impressed by how well she truly sings. She then asks if he is also there for a new song interview and asks about his agency while he explains that he is just an ordinary person who is only practicing for tomorrow's MT talent show, and that he has not even held a guitar for a week yet, so he is trying very hard, which leaves Seol completely stunned by the fact that Jinho has achieved such a level of skill within only a week. She cannot help but feel embarrassed by the realization that she was upset about not being recognized by the world when there is actually such a genius in front of her, and she blushes as she reveals that she is actually a third-year rookie. It is then that the manager arrives while calling out her name, stating that from now on she must carry her phone everywhere, because both he and the CEO were extremely worried. After which the manager recognizes Jinho and asks if he would like to become a celebrity, only for Jinho to refuse immediately. Later on, Seol asks who Jinho is that the manager is trying so hard to recruit, And the manager explains that Jinho is the kid that every agency in Korea is desperate to have, yet at the same time he refuses to sign with any of them. He further claims that Jinho is young, handsome, and even smart, making him the blue chip of this era, which leads Seola to ask how smart Jinho really is, and the manager informs her that Jinho entered Korea University as the national top scorer through regular admission, causing Seola to be unable to help but admit that she truly is a rookie in every possible way. The manager then asks what is wrong with Seola, noticing that she has been visibly down lately, but now seems like something good has happened, which leads Seola to suddenly state that after today's shoot she wants to re-record the third album, startling the manager as he tells her that she does not need to push herself so hard, while Seola insists that she is fine now and that, just like during her trainee days, she wants to become ambitious again. Soon after, she is called for her interview, and the manager remarks that her bright personality suits her well and that she should make sure to completely dominate the camera during today's interview. She also adds that she wants to shoot the music video that the manager mentioned earlier, which makes the manager recall that she previously hated it because of the short and childish outfit, while she insists that since she is just a trainee, she cannot afford to be picky. It is the Business Administration MTB day, and all the participants are seen sitting inside the bus, fully dolled up and sparkling, which causes Jinho to remark internally that he did not expect himself to be applying the sponsored products so diligently. Youngja then explains that sending sponsored products is clearly aimed at promotion through Korea University's business administration fame, insisting that Jinho should properly show off how well he is using them in order to make his spirit shine, while Youngja adds that just thinking about how annoyed the economics department guys will be makes everything feel incredibly sweet, as he claims that he will generously smear on lip balm and only use the bathroom located in the economics building. He then asks Jinho whether he is prepared for the team talent show, while Jinho confidently states that he is completely ready to blow everyone away. Youngju is later seen announcing that it is dinner time for the freshmen who clearly do not know how to cook, as they end up preparing strange and questionable food, leading the freshmen to declare that their team is doomed and that they are planning to mooch off Jinho's team instead. Jinho is then seen making the fire, which ends up looking more like a bonfire than a cooking flame, leaving Youngjae stunned as he wonders whether the freshmen are planning to burn the ramen instead of cooking it properly. And in the end, they all fill themselves up with ramen charity, as they make an offer to the ladies by proposing one bowl of ramen in exchange for getting a picture taken with Jinho. They are all later seen gathered at the auditorium hall, where Youngjae loudly asks what they plan to fill next now that they are full, which causes the freshmen to scream alcohol in response. Youngja then introduces the talent show prizes, explaining that the third place receives 2 boxes of soju, 5 boxes of beer, and 10 chickens, while the second place receives unlimited beer, soju, macchioli, and snacks, causing the strength team to remark that it feels as though a poultry farm has been raided just to prepare the prizes, while the dancing team and the 2 band teams are seen exchanging intense looks with one another. Youngja then comments that he can hear their burning determination from where he is standing, after which he reveals the grand prize to be unlimited snacks along with 5 bottles of X-Rentine aged 17 years, and he officially announces the start. The strength team is seen as they perform first, during which a heavily muscular man lifts an extremely heavy weight, prompting Youngjae to comment that it is amazing while wondering how someone can possibly be that strong, as the man explains that every time he becomes stressed from studying for the entrance exam, he increases the weight of his school bags by 1 kilogram. Youngjae then brings up what could be considered a good thing about becoming a freshman in their department, and the man proudly states that he truly likes how heavy the business administration textbooks are, even going as far as ripping a 500-page textbook in half in order to impress everyone, which causes Kim Jo-won, the author of the book and also a professor in the department, to shout that it is his book being destroyed as he slams the red button. Youngju then quickly calls the next team forward, which turns out to be the dance team, while the surrounding students wonder whether they are about to perform a couple dance, only for the dance team to clarify that they are actually siblings. Jinho's fellow classmates remark that during retreat recreation time, 9 out of 10 instances involving a male-female dance usually end in trouble, and they bring up whether it is the same case for Jinho, who admits that it is, even though he has no actual experience with school trips or retreats. The other band team then comments on whether Jinho is truly the only member of his team and whether he can realistically lead such a motley crew, especially considering the fact that it has not even been half a month since Jinho first picked up a guitar, to which Jinho simply smiles as he states that he has already grasped the knack of it, and that they should brace themselves since he is confident after receiving advice from an expert. This moment traces back to 2 weeks ago when Jaejin notices that Jinho is preparing for the talent show and questions why Jinho is seeking his help instead of relying on his own team members, while Jinho explains that his teammates are only good at studying and are unfamiliar with trends, leading him to believe that performing at the talent show is the least he can do to make up for missing the last shuttle, as he asks Jaejin to help him out, only for Jaejin to respond that Jinho will be responsible for covering the karaoke bills. Jinho is later seen singing several songs he recognizes from television, claiming that they have a great vibe, while Jaejin tells him not to even look at karaoke song numbers with fewer than 4 digits, as Jinho attempts to explain that there is a reason those songs have managed to stand the test of time. However, Jaejin insists that a talent show is not simply about personal preferences, and that Jinho cannot fully understand this because he is an outcast who was obsessed with reset life and never once went on a single school trip. Back in the present, Youngjae is seen announcing the next team, which turns out to be the band team, and they perform an extremely emotional song that nearly brings everyone to tears, making the atmosphere feel like serving a mother's homemade doenjang jjigae at a fancy and elegant party where it clearly does not belong. As the performance continues, Jinho recalls how Jaejin previously pointed out how awkward it would be to sing yet another downer song when the overall mood has already sunk so low, which led him to advise Jinho to play it safe by choosing an exciting and recent hit song instead. Jinho remembers admitting that he does not know many recent songs, after which Jaejin pushed him to look through the top 100 charts and pick a song so catchy that even a neighbor's dog could hum along to the chorus after hearing it once. Jaejin also emphasized that for a stage to succeed, the holy trinity of visuals, popularity, and skill is essential, pointing out that Jinho's visuals are already flawless, while he himself would take responsibility for the song's popularity, leaving Jinho to realize that all he truly needs to focus on is the skill aspect. Jaejin also remarks that Jinho's team consists of 4 members besides himself, and that they are only average singers who can manage a bit of choreography. All the time they have left to practice is only 2 weeks, placing even more pressure on what Jinho plans to do next. Back to the present, Jinho's team is finally called onto the stage, and Jinho is seen alone at first, sitting calmly, with only an acoustic guitar and a microphone in front of him. As he begins to play, he understands that skill is the power that forces people to focus, while popularity is the power that allows everyone to genuinely enjoy the performance, and visuals are the power that prevents anything else from entering a person's sight. The moment the audience recognizes the song, which is known as a massive hit with 500 million subscribers, excitement spreads rapidly through the crowd. Jinho continues playing as the audience remains completely focused and deeply impressed, to the point where many of them begin recording him on their phones, while his team members slowly come into view and start performing their choreography in sync with the song. This steady buildup overwhelms the audience, leaving many of them claiming that what they are witnessing feels like pure magic, while Jinho cannot help but think about how he spent 2 full weeks brainstorming ideas, only to perform for a mere 4 minutes and 52 seconds, which feels far too short. Meanwhile, the other teams are seen sulking in their seats, and Jinho smiles before suddenly raising his finger, confidently signaling that if anyone believes they can match this performance, they should come forward, revealing that he simply wants to fully enjoy his very first festival experience. Elsewhere, someone is seen browsing the Hankook University's student forum, which is overflowing with posts about impressive band performances, yet the name that stands out the most among all of them remains Jinho. At the same time, Seoul's CEO is shown deep in contemplation, while the manager insists that they should recruit Jinho even if it means offering an 8-2 split, prompting the CEO to decide that they would go as far as a 9-1 split, with themselves taking the 1. At the campus, a group of students is seen playing with a senior's cat, while a female student appears visibly frustrated because all the topics they are supposed to choose for their group project are already being taken by other groups. Jinho is then seen arriving, and he thanks them for allowing him to join, explaining that he had taken a break from school due to filming commitments. Jinho then brings up the topic of their assignment again, which involves choosing a company and its main products, then analyzing the pros and cons from a business management perspective, and they all recall their professor's warning that choosing a topic already selected by another group would result in an automatic F. However, they remain worried because most major companies have already been claimed by other groups, which leads Jinho to suggest focusing on the mobile game market, leaving the group members stunned by the idea. He prompts them to think about what comes to mind when they hear mobile games, while the group assumes the area has already been thoroughly researched, but Jinho clarifies that he does not mean ordinary examples, instead referring to games that use celebrity advertisements or ones that make headlines such as Monster Go. As they begin researching online, one of the group members remarks that the topic surprisingly has a vast amount of available resources, admitting that he never knew there were people who spend hundreds of millions on mobile games. The same group member then suggests that they proceed with splitting up the roles, proposing that Jinho handle the presentation, even though Jinho is clearly reluctant to agree. The female student then asserts that Jinho does not get to choose his role, stating that if his participation level is low, then he must take on the more difficult responsibilities, which causes Jinho to push back by pointing out that he has attended every single group meeting, only to be forced to leave midway several times due to entertainment companies attempting to scout him. Seizing the opportunity, the group members decide to designate Jinho as the team leader. Later on, Jinho is seen on a phone call with Aunt Manga, during which he talks about how stressed he feels because of the constant scouting from entertainment agencies, explaining that it has become so overwhelming that he cannot even eat lunch properly. Aunt Maya reassures him by explaining that this situation simply means the agencies are desperate, pointing out that every time a photo shoot featuring Jinho is released, He ranks within the top 10 real-time search terms, while Seoul, Korea sales increased by 10% in men's fashion and dropped by 4% in women's fashion. She further adds that even Jinho's social media account, despite having 0 posts, has already reached 500,000 followers, leaving Jinho feeling unable to fully process his own situation. Aunt Mayang also explains that rumors are spreading about Jinho becoming Tim Jones' muse and likely signing with Seoul, but contrary to expectations, Jinho chooses to remain unsigned, which causes agencies that had been waiting on the sidelines to rush in before it is too late, marking this as the reality of life as a quasi-celebrity for him. Jinho then brings up whether the Seoul office handling his management would guarantee him a promotion, and in that moment he realizes that the call has switched into a video call, allowing him to see that Aunt Mayang is actually participating in a meeting together with the senior CEO. In summary, the Seoul management deal ends up falling through, with the main reason being a complete lack of experience in directly managing a rising star. The CEO explains that what they are discussing involves growing a star entirely under their brand name, and that if Seoul were to manage Jinho directly, it would be no different from acknowledging him as the symbol of Seoul itself, which is far more complex than simply casting and nurturing a model. He elaborates that a model enhances a brand through their own image as long as certain conditions are met, but a star nurtured directly by the company becomes an embodiment of the brand itself, leading the CEO to list several potential factors that could become weaknesses for Seoul. Jinho realizes that there are simply too many risks involved in directly nurturing someone under such circumstances, while the CEO emphasizes that this perspective is based entirely on worst-case scenarios as he bears responsibility toward countless investors. The CEO further explains that although it is a different case, he has personally witnessed how much damage was caused in the 2010s when a brand became associated with a serial killer, leaving a lasting impact that could not be undone. He makes it clear that he is not doubting Jinho's character, but admits that if there had been just a little less to protect, he would have welcomed the idea wholeheartedly. Jinho feels grateful toward the CEO for turning what began as a passing remark into such a meaningful and engaging conversation, while Aunt Mayang insists that she's not joking at all and brings up the idea of Jinho going out and getting formally scouted this time. Jinho responds by shutting that idea down, emphasizing that he is already a freshly turned 20-year-old. Aunt Mayang then turns the focus to his future plans, and Jinho explains that he intends to continue living a freelance lifestyle so that he can focus only on work that he genuinely wants to do, prompting the CEO to point out a cautionary concern. Later, Jinho is seen sitting in a cafe where he receives a message from a senior member of his group project summarizing the details of their latest meeting. A waiter then serves him a cup of hibiscus tea, and Jinho briefly wonders whether it is made from dried flower petals. As he drinks, he recalls the CEO's warning that popularity is like a single flower that, once it wilts, does not easily bloom again, and he reflects on what he would do when that time comes. However, Jinho remains calm, knowing that his other 98 lives will still be waiting for him. 3 days later, Jinho is seen meeting with his group members regarding the project, during which they offer to prepare a presentation script for him if he is too busy, only for Jinho to state that he has already memorized every detail of the materials he previously sent them. A female senior then remarks that she has not seen anyone from entertainment agencies around recently, and Jinho understands the real reason behind this change, as it turns out that an anti-fan of his had posted a complaint on the school forum about unfamiliar people, unrelated to the university, roaming the campus in search of Jinho. Meanwhile, Jinho feels relieved that he can finally eat in peace again, and he suggests celebrating with Galbae. In the very next moment, he hears people calling out to him, and although he initially wants to ignore it and leave, he quickly realizes that he recognizes them. It turns out to be Seal, along with her manager from Loam Entertainment, and Seal notes that they are already familiar with one another. Jinho brings up whether they have come regarding contract, and the manager immediately clarifies that this is not the case, explaining that they had already given up once the larger agencies began making their moves. Jinho then wonders what has brought them here instead, after which the manager starts by bringing up Seul's third album, asking whether Jinho has listened to it. Jinho comments that the album is amazing and adds that it feels like a shame she did not attempt a dance music genre earlier. They then bring up whether Jinho has actually watched the music video, and Jinho honestly admits that he was unable to fully immerse himself in it. When asked for the reason, he explains that while the concept gives off a cute and innocent girl vibe, the person singing no longer feels like a girl, and the level of clothing exposure is too high, making it clash with the overall mood of the music video. He adds that up to a certain point it was understandable because it aligned with the lyrics, but beyond that it no longer worked. The manager then brings up whether the appearance of the male actor was what bothered Jinho, to which Jinho confirms. Although the male actor is not unattractive, Jinho points out that since the relationship depicted is one where one person is clinging unilaterally, having both parties appear equally good-looking makes the dynamic feel unconvincing. The execution turns out so poorly that the phrase describing the music video as the entry barrier to the song ends up being coined. At that point, the manager suddenly requests that Jinho appear in the music video for the next song, and Jinho readily agrees without hesitation, leaving both Seola and her manager surprised by how easily he accepts. At Dongdaemun 00 Mall, Jinho learns that Seola is the only artist currently under Loam Entertainment, and Seola explains that their agency is essentially a small business, meaning that if the third album fails, bankruptcy is almost certain. She brings up whether Jinho is truly sure he wants to get involved with a failing agency, and Jinho assures her that he has no intention of backing out, explaining that he has never forgotten Seola's voice since the first time he heard it, and that he finds it incredibly beautiful. Seola cannot help but blush at his words. Shortly after, Jinho receives a call from Jiyeon, who reacts sulkily after hearing that Jinho claimed he had no time to go see the cherry blossoms with her, only to be spotted in Dongdaemun on what sounded like a date. Jinho explains that it is not a date but work, and stresses that if her mother would find out, it would cause chaos, urging Jiyeon not to mention it. Soon after, Jinho receives another call from Aunt Mayong, who reacts angrily and accuses him of betrayal for turning down Seul's scouting offer. Jinho tries to explain that he was never formally scouted and that he is only appearing in a music video, but she presses him on why he accepted it in the first place. Jinho explains that his decision is simply because he likes the song. Director Jo notices Aunt Mayong smiling at this response, immediately realizing that she has likely discovered yet another way to boost sales. Aunt Mayong then brings up whether Jinho needs any sponsorship support. Later on, Aunt Mayong is seen asking her staff about a particular song, and they respond by saying that they like it, while also asking who the singer is. One male employee admits that he does not have a strong personal preference regarding the song, but no matter how much he thinks about it, he still disagrees with the idea that the artist is anywhere near the level to be supported by Seul. When Aunt Mayong is asked what she is basing her decision on, she confidently states that it is based on both her own judgment and her son's, adding that since everything is already in motion, they should move forward and seek approval. Director Jo remarks that this decision will likely earn her a scolding from the CEO. On the day of the music video shoot, the CEO of Loam Entertainment cannot help but express concern to Director Jo about whether Seul is truly sponsoring everything, considering that if the project ends in failure, a penalty fee would have to be paid. Director Jo reassures him that there is nothing of that sort involved and casually brings up the fact that there is still some budget remaining, suggesting whether they should go as far as blowing up a car, only for the CEO to explain that since the theme revolves around unrequited love, such an approach would be far too excessive. With that settled, the shoot officially begins and Jinho adapts to the filming environment with ease, while Seola requires corrections from time to time, causing her to gradually feel discouraged. Noticing her mood, Jinho steps in to reassure her by explaining that the director tends to become overly enthusiastic at times, and he reminds her that criticism is something she must have already experienced during dance scenes in the past. Jinho then gives her an unusual piece of advice by telling her to imagine him as grilled pork belly, which leaves Seola completely stunned and momentarily worried that such thoughts might make her gain weight. However, Jinho quickly follows up by pointing out that Seola is actually very good at immersing herself into a role, which clearly shows that she has genuine talent, and he suggests that instead she should think of him as a guitar signed by Eric. This instantly sparks surprise in Seola as she admits that such a guitar would be worth $20 million, and the director immediately notices her expression and instructs the cameraman to make sure that moment is captured on film. As the shoot continues, the cameraman cannot help but remark that the atmosphere surrounding Seul has noticeably changed as he films her scenes, and he turns his attention to Jinho, wondering what kind of advice could have caused such a shift. At that moment, Jinho realizes that he has lost out to the power of the guitar metaphor, just as the three directors simultaneously call for a cut, bringing the scene to a close. Finally, they begin filming the highlight scene, which is revealed to be nothing more than the female lead's imagination, prompting a male staff member to comment that using a Cinderella motif makes the scene feel somewhat sad. Director Jo adds that the purpose of their synopsis is to beautifully package that sadness, but the same staff member continues by expressing doubt over whether a production where Tim Jones' muse falls for someone Seola's caliber truly makes sense, insisting that Seola's current level simply is not enough, and that no amount of synopsis embellishment can change that fact. Director Jo coldly shuts him down by questioning whether spouting such nonsense during work aligns with Sewer's standards, causing the worker to immediately apologize and excuse himself from the set. Left alone with her thoughts, Director Jo cannot help but recall how firmly Aunt Mayong had insisted on trusting both her own eyes and her son's judgment. Not long after, Director Jo receives a message from Aunt Mayong asking what she thinks now about her eyes, and Director Jo openly admits to herself that her earlier judgment was wrong. As she watches Jinho and Seola perform, the two of them flow naturally through their roles, delivering a restrained yet emotionally charged embrace that leaves not only the director, but also the entire crew deeply impressed. Meanwhile, Jinho is seen trying to maintain a calm expression, repeatedly reminding himself that what Seola is holding on to is not actually him, but a guitar worth 20 million won. He briefly entertains the thought that if he were to cause a mistake during the take, he might get the chance to hug her one more time. But that fleeting idea is cut short the moment the director calls for the scene to end. Afterward, Jinho checks the view counts and learns that the music video has reached 900,000 views, while the behind-the-scenes making film sits at 200,000. As he presses his phone slightly, Ji-young suddenly reacts to the numbers jumping to 1 million views, marveling at how quickly it happened. It is revealed that Jinho has been uploading behind-the-scenes content, having taken numerous pictures on set and releasing them gradually like adding firewood to a growing flame. Ji-young remarks that Jinho is not like a teddy bear, but more like a fox, to which Jinho responds by stating that grading is complete, and that she should write down the incorrect words 100 times each. Elsewhere, a woman is seen sitting alone in her room, reflecting on how she once imagined being kicked out for failing to pay rent, never expecting the day would come when she would succeed enough to buy a house. She credits everything to Jinho and Seal, recalling earlier discussions about the two not being on the same level, and she firmly resolves to have the CEO accept every project that comes their way from now on. With 15 days remaining until Gwanak-daedo, Youngji is seen slamming his fists on a table in frustration over the inability to sell alcohol at the outdoor pub. Another student explains that the student council has blocked every possible method due to excessive loophole usage during the grace period. Youngji continues venting about how profit is supposed to be made without alcohol sales, only to be told that the executive committee has been instructed to figure out a solution on their own. Jinho is seen calling out to Youngjae, who is clearly surprised to see Jinho wearing a face cap and sunglasses, as Jinho explains that too many people have started recognizing him after the release of the music video. Jinho then brings up the issue of why alcohol cannot be sold at the event, and Youngji explains that according to liquor laws, even diluted alcohol that measures 1 degree or higher is not permitted for sale. In response, Jinho proposes the idea of a self-mixing bar, explaining that the issue is not that alcohol itself cannot be sold, but rather that customers are not allowed to bring alcohol into the venue. Jinho further develops the idea by suggesting that they form partnerships with nearby supermarkets, allowing those stores to sell alcohol at a slightly increased price, while the department offers discounted snacks to customers who purchase alcohol from the partnered supermarkets. Youngju wonders whether people would actually want to mix juice with their alcohol, while another student explains that by adding the right amount of lime juice and sugar to soju, it essentially becomes a mojito, and he confidently claims that he knows most homemade cocktail recipes because he learned how to make them from his girlfriend. Youngju dismisses this as a pointless effort and tells the student not to feel sad, only for the student to snap back that it was actually a success. Youngju then points out that even with these ideas, the profit margin would still result in a loss, making it less effective than selling alcohol directly. Jinho counters this by suggesting that they also sell non-alcoholic cocktails, and while they are at it, they should make their food stand out as well, explaining that while other departments are simply grilling kimchi pancakes, they should present a more upscale menu. When the issue of who would cook is raised, Jinho volunteers himself for the role. However, Youngji cannot help but recall the bonfire Jinho made during the MT, pointing out that Jinho could not even cook ramen without burning it and suggesting that he should stick to serving instead. Jinho insists that he has practiced extensively and is determined to clear his name after the MT incident. The narrative then shifts to a story about two disciples of a chef, where one disciple joins the master out of admiration for his wealth and fame, while the other joins because he wants to cook freely and wholeheartedly. One day, the master calls both disciples together and announces that the successor to his restaurant will be decided in the next competition. And when the day of the competition arrives, the jealous schemes of the disciple who chase wealth and fame combine with the passionate skills of the disciple who loved cooking. The young man who loved cooking ends up losing his sight, and even after being kicked out of the restaurant, he repeatedly cries and falls asleep. When he eventually opens his hazy eyes, the only thing occupying his mind is cooking, leaving him to decide to start over from the very beginning. In the present, Jinho is seen blindfolding himself and declaring that he will truly become that young man as he prepares to cook his meal.